Why hello there, I am Scorched Scales, and I would say, over the past week, I've been reading Darkstalker, but that is not true in this scenario. In reality, I finished reading it, like a week ago, and I just put off recording this audio until now, because, I am the king of procrastination! So yeah, apologies if my commentary isn't as good as normal, especially when it comes to recalling details, because as of the day of me recording this, I did literally finish reading it like a week ago, so sorry about that. So yes, here we are, Darkstalker, what I believe is commonly agreed upon to be the fan favourite and the best in the series. But that's from what I've heard, that may not be accurate towards everybody. But as for my ranking, we'll have to go to the tier list, where, as of right now, I would rank Darkstalker Legends around here. Yes, in my excellent tier. It's basically my top tier without it being my favourite. And yes, I personally rank this below both Moon Rising and Escape in Peril. I'm going to be executed for this. So yes, for the record, I did like this, if you couldn't tell, but it's not my favourite, because it didn't emotionally impact me as much as The Brightest Night or Moon Rising did. And while yes, this does have stuff in common with Escape in Peril, where nearly, if not every single scene, is essential towards the story, but for Darkstalker Legends, that is a lot less clear to me. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if I went back through the book and I found a chapter where I could go, you could cut this. But ultimately, as to why this isn't my favourite, or why it isn't ranked any higher, it's mainly because of a few small problems that I have with the book, which in the grander scheme of the story, it makes sense why they are the way they are. But for me personally, those issues did bring the book down a fair bit, hence why it's not my favourite. Okay, so Darkstalker Legends. So first off, I'll start by talking about what I didn't like about the book. There are three main occurrences of this happening in the book, where either A, we don't see the thing actually unfold, or B, we just skip it. The one that I really noticed at first was when Clearsight and Darkstalker met Fathom. They talk for a bit, and then boom, a week later, they are best friends. Which, while yes, that is how Clearsight viewed the whole thing, because due to her gift of foresight, for her whole life, she's already known Fathom for her whole life. Fathom was already her best friend. I'm like, yeah, I understand why we didn't actually get to see them grow close together as friends and become, oh, now we're best friends. Because this is already abnormally long for a Wings of Fire book. And while, yes, them becoming friends wouldn't really impact the future a lot, because hence why it was skipped. But like, for me personally, I would have felt their friendship, their entire friend group, would have been a lot stronger if we had actually seen them bond as a friend group and grow over time, instead of boom, now we're best friends. But hey, it still worked, I was still invested, but I would have preferred if we took more time to do that. Now, the next two examples of this might be a bit controversial. Okay, for these other two examples, they weren't skipped, they were just very short. The two moments in question was Icicle's death, and when Clearsight put the bracelet on Darkstalker. In the rest of the books, in the main series, for Arc 2, these two specific moments are emphasized. It's emphasized how important these moments are. And like, yeah, they're really important key moments of the climax of this book. But they are reserved to like a line or two. Like, I understand why in Icewing's case, where it's literally reserved to one single line. Because at the end of the day, these are supposed to still be accessible to younger readers. And, if you had a, like, entire page-long description of this dragon gutting himself, that wouldn't exactly fly on the shelves. Ha! Wouldn't fly on the shelves. Because they're dragons. Even I'm starting to get sick of my own jokes. But, like, for such a pivotal moment in the book, for both Darkstalker's character, the overall structure of the story, and not just Darkstalker's character, but literally everybody's character. For such a important moment in the book, the actual event unfolding is just like one page. Not page. Ugh. I wish it was one page, because then you wouldn't have this problem. I mean, one line. I mean, like, I'm not exactly requesting, like, a entire chapter of him doing it. But what I would have preferred is that, like, maybe a couple more lines of the event unfolding, how Icicle was feeling deep within, of course, Darkstalker's thoughts watching this unfold, and what the crowd was thinking. I don't know. I just think it would have been better if we saw the actual practice unfolding, because for most of this book, they are emphasizing that, ooh, Darkstalker could very easily go down this path of evil. And for the pivotal moment where it shows that, ooh, Darkstalker has taken the wrong path, it's reserved to one line, which I understand why it's like that. It's just that for me personally, I would have liked it if we had a bit more of it. And for my other example of this, and once again, I think this is where this might be a bit controversial, the moment where Clearsight puts a bracelet onto Darkstalker's arms. Arms? Fuck. Arm! Use the right term, you idiot. Now, unlike Arctic's death, this actually does have a few lines to unfold. It's just that, for a moment that is literally the climax of the book, it's the ending, it's the fate of Darkstalker, it's still rather quick for me personally. And I would have preferred if we had, once again, a few more lines from both of the characters, both describing how they are feeling in the moment. Even though we do get a bit of that, I just would have preferred if we had a bit more. I mean, like, right now, I can't think of what is more of a nitpick example of this, a more smaller version of it. It's mentioned in one line. It's either right before the Seawing massacre or after it. Hell, it might even be during it. Fathom mentions how earlier that day, he was with Albatross, and Albatross made the throne for the Summer Palace, and how he apparently was unusually quiet that day. I would have preferred, if we had seen that, have another moment from Fathom where he interacts with Albatross before the massacre, because during Albatross's rampage, he mentions how the Queen, his sister, talked to him. I would have liked it if we had more foreshadowing for that, rather than, boom, it's now happening. But yet again, that is how Fathom viewed it, because he didn't pick up on it, and it seemed rather sudden to him. And that moment was from Fathom's perspective, so it would make sense for us in that moment to feel the same as Fathom. So therefore, not including that interaction might have helped with the scene even more because we're in the same exact position as Fathom. I literally just thought of that on the spot while recording this. How didn't I think of that earlier? Okay, so as for what I liked about the book, this is the first Wings of Fire book, excluding the prologues and the epilogues, where they actively shift point of views. Because this book, it shifts between the POVs of Darkstalker, Fathom, and Clearsight. And I loved that. I loved seeing it from like different characters' perspectives. Although, this did lead to me, like, dreading certain parts of the book from when we switched POVs. Because at a certain moment, I would be like, no, I want to stay with this character. I wanted to keep on reading that. It's a double-edged sword. Because a very, very good aspect from it is that, of course, you get different POVs, different characters do different stuff, you get different characters' opinions on the same event, and of course you get to see smaller things that a different character wouldn't have seen, like Clearsight viewing the Icewing spies going across the beach. But on the other hand, this could mean possibly switching between characters that you don't really like. Which didn't happen for me, because I like all three of these characters, I liked seeing all three of their POVs, but I could see this becoming a problem in the future in different Legends books. And also in this book, I just love how, like, you constantly have stuff escalate. Like, because if one thing happens, another thing happens, because that thing happens, another thing happens, because that thing happens, somebody does this. I think that's, like, excellently well done in this book. Like, the key example of this is Foeslayer, when she gets kidnapped by, Queen... What's the Queen's name of the Icewings? Queen Diamond? Is that her name? It's not Glacier, because that's in modern day. It's not Snowfox, I think. Is it Queen Diamond? Hold on, let me look it up. Is it Queen Diamond? Yes, it is Queen Diamond. I actually got that right. Like, that occurs because of the argument between Arctic and Foeslayer, which we don't see unfold because Darkstalker wasn't there. But because of that moment, Darkstalker's attitude changes a lot more. And due to his wife being kidnapped, Arctic goes off and uses his animus magic on... what's her name again? I can't believe I forgot her name. Oh, I really liked her character. Oh, what was she called? Whiteout. Yes, Whiteout. And because of Arctic using his powers on Whiteout, that causes Darkstalker to take control of Arctic, which is then when Arctic becomes a bloody pinata. But I really like how, like, a small thing happens, and that small thing keeps on going and going and going and going until it evolves into this giant problem. I think that was done great. Okay, so now, moving on to the characters. First, I should really start by talking about the title character, Darkstalker. He's a prick. I hate him. I want him dead. I want to beat his head in with a shovel. The book does make Darkstalker understandable. The whole point of this book was to give Darkstalker his origins, it was to expand upon his character, and to make him a more complex character, in which it 100% succeeded in doing. Even though, when I say I hate him, I mean I hate him as a person. I enjoy reading him, but as a person, I hate him. It's kinda hard talking about him, because it is understandable as to why he does some of the things that he do. Was that English? And also his relationship with Clearsight is wonderful. It's just that, he's just a horrible person. The book does somewhat justify this by having him come from a rather, let's say, not a great home, but just because bad things happened to you in the past, that doesn't give you an excuse to do bad things to others. there were clearly moments in this book where he was a good person, a good friend, a good partner. The moment that comes to mind to me is when Darkstalker is trying to get Clear Sight to leave her room because her hatching day is the next day, I believe. And he picks her up and just tosses her out the window. And when Fathom is going through Darkstalker's scroll and he eventually finds out, oh, invisible link and all that. And he sees the spell that Darkstalker wrote to create a bell to ring whenever Fathom was upset. Like, yeah, that's a really good thing a really good friend would do. Darkstalker clearly does care about the loved ones around him. It's just that he has a warped view of the world. And it truly was unfortunate to see him go down the path that he did. At one point, theoretically, he might have been able to make the world a better place. But when he fell asleep, he made it a worse place than when he entered. I mean, like, even from the very moment he was born, he was a bastard. Like, his thoughts when he was inside of the egg. Ugh, wow. A literal, yet-to-be-born child is thinking some pretty villainous stuff. And how he basically refuses to help Whiteout hatch so he can have all the power to himself. There was good in Darkstalker, but from the very beginning, something was off with him. Actually, I believe his entire character and everything that happened with him is best summarized by something that Indigo said. Indigo says, our choices are what makes us good or evil, or what we do, how we help or hurt the world around us. While yes, the whole soul thing does come into question, but at the end of the day, it comes down to the choices that you make. And Darkstalker didn't make any particularly great ones for the world. He always just prioritized himself and how everything could benefit him, his goals, and his image of what the world should be. Now, onto Clear Sight, the second perspective of the book. I'll fully admit, I have a lot less to say about her. I find her whole perspective interesting, because in reality, she is the only person in this book who overall has a goal. Because for the mainline books, the protagonists always have a goal. There's always an end point. There is a clear through plot of book. There is something that they need to do. But for Darkstalker, it doesn't have that. Because for most of this book, it's the characters just living. But that doesn't happen with Clear Sight, because she does have an overall goal throughout the book, and that is to prevent Darkstalker from turning evil. Which clearly didn't turn out so well. Like, she sees into a possible future, and sees a possible future that she could have had with Darkstalker. And it's kind of her motivation throughout the book, to prevent Darkstalker from turning evil, so that can happen. But it's also because she generally just cares about Darkstalker, and she prefers not to commit mass genocide. I will say, at the end of this book, after Darkstalker is literally put to sleep, we have a epilogue for Fathom, which is great. I'm extremely happy that he got a epilogue. But I would have liked it if Clear Sight got one as well. Because Clear Sight's story just ends with her standing on a mountain, thinking about the lost continent. Maybe she gets a kind of epilogue in Arc 3, since she is directly connected to the lost continent. But I don't know. I would have liked to see how things turned out for her. I would have liked to see her be happy without Darkstalker. And as for the last POV of the book, there is Fathom. Now, Fathom, he is my favourite character in this book, and he might just be my favourite male Wings of Fire character. I loved Fathom. I loved this character in this book. It's just that I felt so bad for him most of the time. I felt so sorry for him. Like, everything from the Seawing massacre to what happens with Indigo. I just felt sorry for the poor guy. Like, I love how the event of the Seawing massacre still very clearly affects him and the decisions that he makes. Hell, the quote I read from Indigo earlier, that's addressed towards him, and the part where he discovers what happened to Indigo, and when he brings her back, I think that's just wonderful. I loved that moment. I loved that entire chapter with Indigo. Hell, I loved every chapter with Indigo. Wait, not Indigo. Fathom. I'm mixing up names now. What is wrong with me today? And I love how in his epilogue, well, the epilogue is from Indigo's point of view, not his, but it's mainly centered around him because it's the conclusion to his character arc, where he comes to terms with what happened and what he is, and I just think the ending is beautiful. I love Fathom in this book. I love everything with him. And I find it kind of sad that, like, when I eventually find a Seawing protagonist that I love, it's in the book where he isn't the main character. Like, damn, why couldn't he have a book? Why couldn't this be called Wings of Fire Fathom featuring Darkstalker? Just make Fathom the main character. That could improve everything. Have a problem in your life? Make Fathom the main character. And just now, I'm moving on to the side characters. Okay, so Indigo. I'll fully admit, I don't have a lot to say about her, other than she's cool, I like her, and we always stan a girl boss. And Foe Slayer. I just feel sorry for Foe Slayer. Like, she just really wanted her family to be happy, and she does. I do think, from what I remember, she does truly love Arctic, and Arctic does love her. It's just that, the whole situation's just so unfortunate for them. I just feel sorry for her. And also, like, she just disappeared for, like, a book and a half? Like, she just disappeared at the beginning of Escape in Peril, and just hasn't returned to the arc yet? Like, huh? Where did she go? Now, I've got a lot more to say about both Arctic and Whiteout. Arctic, he's a weird character for me to wrap my head around, because he does do some truly evil stuff in this, like, where he mind controls his, neurodivergent daughter and makes her act quote-unquote normal. Like, damn, that's some truly evil shit right there. But, like, it's strange because I hate him that he did that. But I don't think he deserved to be gutted in front of the entire village. I guess you could say he didn't really have the guts to stand up to himself. I am the king of comedy. I think the reason why I feel more sympathetic towards Arctic than I do towards Darkstalker is because we see Arctic before he turned out like this. We see him in The Runaway, where he's a cool guy. He's alright. He's a decent person. And then this also occurs in the prologue of this very book. So our first impression of him isn't negative, but meanwhile, our first moment with Darkstalker is when he's inside of his egg, and he's having not so great thoughts. I think that's the reason why I feel more complicated about Arctic, or with how Icicle was less antagonistic when we first met him, but meanwhile, the first time we met Darkstalker, he was having rather selfish thoughts of himself. And so just on a note here, I read The Runaway. There was this really awesome evil lesbian couple. I forget their names, but I loved them. I really liked them. And to be fully honest, I'm kind of disappointed that we didn't see them in this book. I mean, like, I understand why we didn't see them, because this takes place in the Nightwing Kingdom. But they aren't even mentioned, which is kind of weird. I don't know, for something that was so significant towards Icicle's character. Wait, is his name Icicle or Arctic? Have I been calling him by the wrong name this entire time? Oh my god, I have. Icicle is the name of Winter's sister. It's Arctic, who is Darkstalker's father. This is why you don't talk about a book a week after you finished it. And as for the last character that I'm going to speak about, Whiteout. I really liked Whiteout. She's a adorable little bean, but there is a little part of me that kind of irks with how she's represented. Because she does have coding of a neurodivergent character. And you can very clearly tell that this is written by a atypical author. Because for people who are defined as weird, some of the stuff that they say can be viewed as nonsense. But in reality, that weird stuff that we are saying, it makes perfect sense. We see that the stuff that Whiteout is saying does make perfect sense when she meets Thoughtful? Is that the name of the guy with the glasses? But we see that when Whiteout interacts with him, the stuff that she's saying makes perfect sense to him. At that point, the stuff that she's saying isn't complete nonsense, it does make sense. It's just that the characters in this book don't have the context to understand it. So yes, those were my very long, rambly, messy thoughts on Darkstalker. Now, once again, I did like this, I did enjoy this. It's on the lower part of my highest ranking for me for a reason. But for me personally, it doesn't become my favourite, and I don't think I'm willing to crown it as the best written in my opinion, because of how it seems to gut the more important scenes in the climax, and how it immediately skips to the characters being best friends. But besides that, this book, great. Excellent. I do wish that I read this before reading Talons of Power, because I do think that would have given a new perspective upon the entire story. Hell, if anything, I really think Talons of Power should start with a spoiler warning for Darkstalker, because I had the whole situation of Darkstalker putting a spell on Clearsight spoiled for me because Darkstalker exclaimed that he put one on her in Talons of Power. In the future, if I ever come back and reread this arc, I will definitely change the order of how I read these. And as for the next and last book of Arc 2, Darkness of Dragons, I know very little about it. The only thing that I've had spoiled for me is that I know how Darkstalker is defeated. But besides that, I know absolutely nothing. And I'm very intrigued to see how this concludes, especially since the book is the longest Wings of Fire book so far. Like, Darkness of Dragons is longer than Darkstalker. Like, the audiobook is 10 hours long. Like, I'm very curious about how this could conclude the entire story. And as for the art in this video, of course, I drew Darkstalker. But I'm not really that happy with how it came out. Because, as you might have figured out by watching the footage, I tried to combine the skull shapes of the Icewing and Nightwing, since Darkstalker is a hybrid. Even though it is detailed in the book that he looks like a normal Nightwing, but I wanted to experiment with that. I tried to combine the more narrow, sliding down hill shape of the Icewing head with the more circular and smooth and curvy skull of Nightwing. But at the end of the day, it just ended up looking like a weird looking Mudwing. Because, like, this is nearly one-to-one with how I draw Mudwings. But this was an interesting experiment. And as you may have seen throughout the footage, but yes, I tried to make every single point on him into a really sharp point. Because of course, that is like one of the basics of designing a villain. If you make every point of them pointy, it makes them look more aggressive because, oh, pointy, ooh, sharp. But this is the first time that I drew an image with a background for a video. I put the image on like a scroll, and I purposely replicated the cover of the book. Although I did try to go for a more foggy look, in which for that I was... this is a obscure reference, but I had the red dust in Godzilla's Singular Point when I was doing the red mist around the bottom of Darkstalker's neck. So yes, now that's really all I have to say, which is for the best, because currently I have been recording for an hour and 30 minutes. I ran out of water like 30 minutes ago. My throat, it's screaming for me to stop talking, so I better listen to it. So yes, thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see you another day.